56, when most people are looking to retire and sort of lead a very, let's say, a very peaceful life. So that was his motivation. For me, when I was forced to, I was really not keen on joining business. I had finished my graduation, I was very keen to go abroad, study, etc., etc. My dad started this factory, then there was this emotional blackmail at home saying, only paiya, nee enga poittaana enna paadu, appa savings ella business potukaru, factory aarambikkaru, nee varalena eppadi. So that was the reason I came into business. Very unhappy. The first 2-3 years, I was absolutely unhappy about getting into business. Then, everyone has a human quality. You make the best of the situation that you're in and move on. So, in the late 80s, like I said, downhill. We had to close the factory in 91, literally, or we sold it, saying that before the unit became sick, get out of it. Between 91 and 95, my dad was quite ill and he passed away shortly after that. I was in a crossroads saying, what do I do? Do I stick on to the same line? I know something about steel tube for the last 6-7 years. Had some expertise, if I can call, in a product, not much scale. So I said, let me take that on forward. As I've already got something going for about 8-10 years, there's no point jumping into a new line. So that's when we formalized the business as Shankara Pipes India Limited in 1995. So the motivation at that time was prove myself and whatever in the industry wrong, saying this guy was probably a failure. Appa edo pandindaru, ivar vandaru, padichittu vandaru. In those days, there was no value for education. IIM ella poittu MBA nu pattam vaangittu vandaru. Appadiye business ella naasama poichu. So this was my motivation at that point of time, was to prove people wrong along with myself that I can succeed, I can do something. So that is when, and then I was very clear, it has got to be an organized business. You can't, though the business practices were different. I said, I cannot be doing without billing, cash business, so on and so forth. So from day one, the rule I made within the organization, we were a small team of 7 or 8 people, 10 people. We said there is going to be no cash, there is only going to be billed, irrespective of being in a so-called brick and mortar business of pipe, steel, which you எல்லாருக்குமே உங்களுக்கு தெரியும் என்ன மாதிரி business இருந்தது. இப்போ அதான் பாதி பேர் பண்ணிருப்பாங்க, with bill, without bill எல்லாம் நடந்துட்டு இருக்கும். But that was the first policy I took. We are not going to do without bill. So 95 was when we started with a 1.5 crore top line of that year. So the first strategy of the growth, so that was my motivation. Second, the motivation at that time, personal motivation. When I used to go to Bangalore market to get credit, people weren't giving me credit. ये छोकरा तो आया है हिंदी लग चल रहे, so I hope you can understand. ஏதோ பையன் வந்திருக்கா, அவனுக்கு யார் கிரெடிட் கொடுக்க போறா, அப்பா இல்ல, இப்போ வந்து பணம் திருப்பி கொடுப்பாங்களா. So that became another motivation for the I in me, which said I have got to prove these guys wrong. I am going to beat them at their own business. So this was largely, if I may say again, a brick and mortar business, and with due respect to all the, in case any Agarwals or Marwadis are sitting here. So those days this business was totally dominated by them. So I said, I'm an outsider. I'm a South Indian who's going to come into this business. Avangale nama beat pannalam. When I reached in 2001 100 crores, I knew I was pretty much there. Even in the steel business, I was fairly big. So I realized that now that kind of a motivation is no more required. To get that, the initial starting of the engine, to prep up the engine, you needed something, very much prediction or water. So that was what happened in the first 5 to 6 years. I said that is over. So then your motivation as an I started changing. What next? So they could again be people who are very satisfied. I remember in 2001 there was a very nice gentleman in Bangalore, and Gopal Agarwal ji used to buy a lot of steel tubes. He was a manufacturer of a company called Calcutta Tubes. He's still there manufacturing. He used to come and tell me, why are you running? क्यों इतना भागते हो? Why are you running so much? छोड़ो अभी अच्छा हो गया ना, आराम से बैठो. I looked at him and said, I don't think I can be sitting down, आराम से बैठो. We're going to take it to the next level. So the next motivation was, do I grow in the same steel tubes? Do I multiply branches? What is the, let's look at then, what are the other factors that start contributing? So the first part was I, the next part was the external factors. So external factors for growth could be competition, it could be the business changes, what happens, it could be the business relevance of what is the business you're in. Can you run the business the same way that you've been doing the last so many years? as Mr. Ravi in his last slide talked about the change with the Chameleon and the Harvard Business Review talking about change. Change is always a constant, please remember. There's nothing else that is more constant than change. As you all know, I mean, examples could have been given to you. So, though change is a moving concept, I believe it's the most constant thing in our lives. நீங்க என்ன இருந்தாலும் ஒரு 10-20 வருஷம் முன்னாடி டெலிஃபோன் இருந்தது. இன்னைக்கு டெலிஃபோன் யார் பார்க்குறாங்க? மொபைல் ஃபோன். ஒரு 10 வருஷம் முன்னாடி ஸ்மார்ட் ஃபோன் இல்லை, இன்னைக்கு ஸ்மார்ட் ஃபோன். It's replacing a computer. It's replacing everything. So that is something, if you don't stay relevant to change, you'll be outdated. I'm sure in a building today, there were kinds of buildings. There are newer kind of buildings. Today probably, I don't know how much it is in Coimbatore, but if you look at in cities like Bangalore, I'm sure Coimbatore also, there are very nice structures. So people today cannot get away with, let's say, what we typically used to call a PWD structure. Other than probably the government buildings, you cannot build a PWD structure and expect to be a successful builder. You have to have some refinement. You will have to go to Lakshmi Ceramics and buy better quality, a Kajaria tile or a Somani tile. Or you'll have to buy, if he says Kohler is the best, Kohler vaanganilla, Jaguar chonnaga, because your customers are demanding. Now you cannot say, I'll still stick with, an old kind of a JL, kind of a CP fitting or something, parvala, or Gujarat or tile vaangi potalla, customer accept pannuvaanga. Customers also becoming aware. So you have to change with the times. So that is the reason for scaling. Then the third thing is, what does that scaling give me? What are the efficiencies of scaling my business? It could be pricing, it could be sheer competitive advantage, it could be a lot of other things in your, like I mentioned, pricing, competitive advantage, you get better quality of people in your organization. As Mr. Ravi again, I'm drawing from, because I was here part of the previous discussion, he talked about as you scale, you attract better talent, you get better people, you're able to hold on to people. So there are a lot of things that happen with scale which become, these are the external factors of why you probably need to scale. So circa 2001, what was the reason? I said, okay, we've done 100 crore. That time we were predominantly a tube investment distributor, Chennai. We had aligned ourselves because I did not have the resources or the money or the working capital in 1995 to take on the big giants in the business, because you need a lot of working capital to have inventory. There were a lot of debt. So what did we do? We said, let's look at what was happening in the industry at that point of time. So there was one thing very simple. I don't think I or we as a small team reinvented any wheel. We only looked at the tube dealers or tube industry, saying everybody at the time, like largely sellers. It was a little more of a seller-dominated market. So the seller will sit back, let the customer come. So it was always a let the customer beware, let the buyer beware. More of a concept like that. So number can it be a 90s, the 90s, 95, the reform period, Narasimha Rao's of the world, a lot of things were happening. Steel was becoming de-licensed, a lot of new industries were coming, a lot of auto industries were coming, auto ancillaries were coming. So what did we do? We took a dealership of Tube Investment. Tube Investment is a product production company, a product company. Very, very good on the kind of quality of the tubes, the kind of quality of the products they manufacture. What was I? I was relatively educated, if I can call it that. I also could understand, we had a small team of engineers within us who could understand the product. So we said, let us align with a company like TI, who are also looking for a partner to sell some of the more sophisticated tubing to particularly auto and general engineering industry, which we felt we can do better than go into a typical marketplace and compete on a price for a more, let us say, a Janta kind of a product. So the strategy, that was a strategy along with scaling. So we went with that strategy to 2001. So we were largely a production-oriented kind of a dealer. So I will go to a customer and say, oh, we steel in the grade on the grade. Then I will get back to TI and say, this is a specific grade of steel they want. Can we make a tube on this? This is the kind of thickness that we want. So it was more and more a customized kind of a product deliverance to the various kind of a customers, which we grew. It also gave me fairly decent margin. So there was a fairly good foundation that was built in that 5 to 6 years. One thing I personally believe in, no business can be made without having profits. You are in the business for profit. You have to have profits. So you need to keep an eye constantly, I'll come to that a little later, you constantly need to keep an eye on your balance sheet and your profit and loss accounts. You cannot ignore that and sacrifice that at the altar of growth. So that was the first 5-6 years. Next part of it was, now can I take up volumes? Now there was this thrust, need, saying, okay, we've done 100 crores, how many more crores can we grow by? So what was the next, let's say, phase or the activity that we looked at strategically was, we aligned again. Tata Tubes at that point of time was coming with a new product called structural tube. Today it's become very common. But in 2001-2, they had developed a whole new concept called Tata Structura, which was going specifically for the building, in the money. If this was replaced by tubes, I'm sure all of you have used it somewhere or the other. So this was becoming a big new product in India, squares and rectangular. Square rectangular pipe round. So this, they wanted what they call a business development partner. Then we became the business development partner. For the South, we were representing them in virtually all the 4 states, no, not Tamil Nadu, but Karnataka, Kerala and Andhra Pradesh. So we looked at that product as a medium for very rapid growth. So there the whole strategy changed from being exclusive to a customer-centric. We said, let's go the dealer route. So we appointed very large number of retailers in these 3 states. We became a sort of a giant distributor, if I can say so, and took this product to the mass level. We said we cannot be sitting at it only for large projects, etc. Let's see if this product can be disseminated at the mass level. So we grew from 100 to about 500 crores in that period of 5 years, from 2001 to 2006. So this was then the next pause button that came about, and this is where you as an entrepreneur will have to look at what or where is my appetite. Direction of pointe poma, direction mathanma, business mathanma, yenna panna. So that, I think, is again individual calls where the eye with the sensible objectives of scaling keep happening. So there's always an intertwining, please remember, between the promoter and the necessities of the business. People, 500, 600 crores, great, we were doing quite well, there was decent margins, healthy balance sheet, everything was looking good. I could have sat back and said, good. I was already in my mid-40s, I said, well, I'm quite happy, what next? Nothing next. Then comes, each individual is driven by something else, and it's not necessarily ambition. It is ambition, of course, it's not money, it need not be. I always believe in business. I have a son, but I have not done my business for the son's sake. I have always believed that I do business for my sake. Whatever I do it for my sake. Not for saying some Goluparam, I don't know what my Goluparam is going to do. I'll be long dead and gone. Whether I build them, people, when you see so many people will say, big deal, yeah. The you're not going to be seeing them. Correct? We'll all have some finite life. We're going to be here for 80 years, 90 years, 60 years, we don't know. So, whatever you do, please make it very clear you're doing it for yourself. You're enjoying it, you're happy, you're doing the mission, you're pushing it, do it for yourself. I'll come to work-life balance later. So, this is the next part. So, I'm trying to bring in various, through my own personal examples, trying to highlight what is motivation and where you and the need of the business come. But there was some sense in me which was telling me that I was restricting our company or myself to only steel tubes till then. I also felt that the product was becoming extremely competitive. Let's say in trade, we used to make 5 to 6% as a gross margin in those days. Suddenly I could see the trend coming down. So in trade, we used to have fairly decent, people used to pay within 30-40 days, 30-35 days. Slowly that was getting stretched to 40-45 days, margins coming down, credit extending. Something, but things are not going too well. Too many, very low entry barriers. When you get a construction line, I don't know. But contractors, they keep starting it. Suddenly you feel the entry barriers are very low. Somebody says, I'll build one plot, one house, and I'll sell it, and I'm also a big contractor. Supposing some of you here who are larger contractors always are constantly getting threatened, or larger builders, you're always getting threatened. Because you're pricing, you've built up a structure, you've got certain systems, you've got certain qualities. Suddenly there is a disturbance that keeps happening in the business, so you've got to start reinventing the wheel for yourself. And that is what we in Shankara did. we said, fine. We got a set of actual users, OEs as we call them. In our earlier part of the business, we have a trade sector which is fairly robust, but something is not looking too good in terms of working capital, in terms of, it could get stressed in the near future. So immediately, thank you, we start moving this on into probably what next. I mean, obviously, one thought was very clear in my mind that we are not moving out of this business. I was partly at one part of building materials, which was steel tubes, a little bit of steel, then we said, what next? So, in the building material, I add panna mudiyada. So that time the mind was very focused on steel related, let us be within the same family. I don't know, suddenly, tiles or some cement look like a new animal. So, there are so many different industries, can we bring everything under one roof, so on and so forth. So in 2000, and I think that was the Lehman Brothers crash, 2007-8, when I as a promoter, that's the first time I really felt scared. I really never had any worries about, money was always a secondary motive. It was there. I mean, certainly from a business point of view, you've got to make money, but after a point, money hardly motivates. I mean, you need a car, you need a house, you're going to add a piece of chicken or fish. That's about it. So you're nothing, your menu is not going to dramatically change just because you've got, another 100 crores in your bank. So I think that part is the roti kapda makan is more or less settled. That doesn't motivate you more. So then what happened was that let us look at, can we do retail in this business? So in 2007, we started one experimental retail when we saw some fabricator walking to one of the stores and looking at the buyer behavior was so much like the way we go and do some buying vegetables, or you go to a supermarket and then suddenly you discover I've been using Lux soap all my life, but today there are 20 other brands of soap available, so can I try something new? So this was what happened even in a peculiar product like pipe, where the fabricator came in, he bought some 3-4, then he said, I remember the size also 70 by 25 was the pipe size, and he said, in the mari pipe la kadikkedda. This was in Bangalore, obviously the language would have been Kannada. I don't want to speak Kannada now. So I will, he said that, listen, I used to roll this section and I didn't know it was readily available. So the two things that I was coincidentally in my warehouse in that day, it was a small warehouse. So I looked at him and I said, he's just buying like a retailer. How would we go and buy vegetables, give me a kal kilo either, 4 kilo other, and buy one more. Same way he was buying whatever he knew. What he didn't know, because we had a good display in the warehouse or the shop, he said, can I pick up this, and I didn't know such sizes were available. So I think that was the birth of retail. So as an owner, you have to be involved. There is no such thing that you cannot be involved. In fact, Mr. Ravi earlier was saying, I want to take my company to public, so maybe, you'll have more people and all that. And I was later telling him, the minute you go to public, you become more involved, you'll be on a permanent treadmill. I think but in the public image, you're always on a treadmill. Because you cannot afford to be uninvolved unless you're not a serious owner. I mean, if you're an owner saying, something, let it happen, that's another issue altogether. But if you're serious about your business, however big or small it is, you have to be involved. You cannot divorce yourself from your business and say, Yellame, I will delegate. Yes, you can delegate a lot of routine functions. Please don't go and write your day-to-day books or even get into very low-level selling at a shop level. But you have to be involved in strategy, in thought, in the direction that you're going to give your company. Ultimately, it is your company, please remember. Nobody else can give direction. You can listen to a lot of people, but then the direction, ultimately, you've got to take the plunge. So the scaling then happened in a strategic manner. At that point of time, we were about 600 crores in terms of top line. And I was not looking so much as top line scaling, but it was strategic scaling. So now there comes another element that scaling can be done in different ways. So one is sheer, typically what we understand is numbers, volume. Yes, it's a very important part of scaling. The other is, can I scale strategically? Can I add a lot more products to my portfolio? Many more things. So that's a strategic scaling, as I call it. So in this, we said, okay, there were two things. It was not just adding products, the way of doing business was also being looked at. So we were largely a distribution business. We were doing wholesale. So suddenly getting into retail meant a totally different mindset. It's a very, very different ball game from doing distribution to retail. So there were two things, product adding as well as changing the course of the way you're doing business. So these were two strategic scalings that we did in 2008 a little more aggressively. I think by 2010, only in one space, we only looked at fabrication that time. So even for fabrication, we had to add so many products. It was not just enough that we had pipes, you had anchor channel, you had rods, you had welding electrodes, paint, hardware, so on and so forth, to cater to a fabricator. So that was the first part of the strategic scaling. Of course, so this is the way the scaling happens. Then coming to which is very, very critical is, I have talked a lot about why scaling.